I'll let you
And
just
they're
kind
all
of,
connected. They're all
yeah,
connected.
yeah. I'll let you kind of let people know how they're connected, and kind of let them know the ones that really are the ones that share some of the best information, that we're number one, we're not alone, and we're not
Oh yeah.
we don't die. We
We
continue
don't, there's
afterwards.
no such thing as death.
Yeah.
There never was a thing as death. A matter of fact, I just wrote an article for one of my May newsletters about it. It triggered it to write it because
Really?
I put out a newsletter
Okay.
yeah, on my website every week.
And what's your website so people know?
It's sherryanshara.com.
Okay. And I'll actually post a link to that below the in the description of the video.
But yeah, I'm working on a new one right now. Yeah, that'd be great. And
Okay.
I can give you my phone number if anybody wants to call. It's 480
Mhm.
609 0874. That's my office number.
Perfect. Okay. And we'll make sure that everybody has that, just in case. And if they're listening, because I know this will be put on Spotify, if they're listening, to just go to like YouTube, and they can click on any of those links or get that information as well too. Okay, perfect. So, Sherry, continue on with. You had a near-death experience. I think you said your first one was at 3 years old, right?
Correct, at 3 years old.
Okay. And you knew right from even that age that you really didn't want to be here in this physical realm, correct?
That is absolutely 1000% the truth. It
Yeah.
wasn't true, but it's absolutely the truth. I did not like it here. And for 3 years old, I had an incredible vocabulary. But again, I was raised by three teenagers and they were wonderful to me. And so I knew coming in. And so I created the first one when I was 3 years old.
Hmm. And how did you create that?
I stopped breathing. I actually stopped breathing. I thought that'd be easy, take myself out. I just won't breathe. So I ended up in a hospital in an oxygen tent.
Hmm.
And I was sitting in a little Buddha position, and it was in the middle of the night. I knew that because it was really dark and quiet. I remember my father saying to my mother, "She'll be okay." And I sat there and said, "No, I won't be okay. I really don't like it here." And one of my contacts, one of my support team, her name happened to be Bashibar Metafista, and she's from like a bazillion dimensions, whatever. And she was in the hospital room, and she said, "Sherry, no, you're not going to die. You have lots to do." And I'm 3 years old and communicating.
Yeah.
And so she became part of my life from the very beginning. She was there at my birth. And she said, "Nope, you're not going to die." And I was like, I had like a little tantrum.
So do you consider her like a spirit guide?
No, not really.
Okay.
I like to take out all the mystery out of everything.
Okay.
I am My very favorite words in any language is practical applications. If we don't have a practicality and if we can't apply what we learn or how we experience, then there's no point in it.
Mhm.
And so she just happened to be, you could say, a guide if you'd like, or a teacher, or someone who was there for me. And it didn't matter that no one else could see her. I
Mhm.
could see her and
Mhm.
talk to her.
And so from that point on, did you have like an open connection? Like from that first near death experience at 3, did you have like this open connection to the other side?
Well, there are many sides. There's not just one other side. There's
Okay.
multiple sides. We're very multidimensional. But because this dimension is based on duality,
Hmm.
good and bad, high and low, the infinity sign,
Hmm.
the hourglass, and in my new book, I don't want to put a plug in here, but it's
No,
called
you're
Busting
fine.
Out of the Matrix, Be Free. If you take the hourglass and bring it down 3 times into third dimension and turn it, we have DNA. So I knew way back when that we were being programmed. I didn't know the word programmed.
Hmm.
And so even going to school,
Hmm.
I would ask questions. And so that had an impact and an influence on me. So I would have conversations with her. Sometimes I'd remember, and sometimes I forget. Because remember, I'm 3 years old in a human body.
Right. Right.
But I would look at things so differently. And I communicated actually better with adults than I did with kids my own age. Not that I didn't like them or had a good time with them or had friends. I always had a lot of friends, but I was always looking at things from a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
not a perception. And what I discovered later in life was duality was based on all perceptions. So perception is the reception and deception of our conceptions. But
Hmm.
I like perspectives. I like facts. So as I moved along when I was 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
there were two things that were very profound for me at 8 years old. I'm not going to get political here,
No, that's
but
fine.
I remember Khrushchev saying, we had the first TV in our neighborhood. So
Okay.
everybody came over. But I remember Khrushchev saying that we will get your country from the inside out. And I thought, that's how people get programmed. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the word program. And so at 8 years old, I raised my hand and I said to the teacher, well, if Columbus discovered America, how come people were living here? And
Mm-hmm.
he said the most profound thing to me that I utilized in what I do as a profession now. He said, memorize it and pass the test. And I knew I would not learn, except it took me on. We didn't have Google then or
Right.
Wikipedia,
Right.
but we had this wonderful thing called the library,
Mm-hmm.
not the school library. And so I would like to go to the library, and I was always researching and reading more adult books. I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean porn books, but I mean
Right.
adult books for an
Right.
8 year old. I was looking through, I would go looking for the encyclopedia. I would look anything I could find that would give me some real information, not memorize it and pass the test.
Right. So then, going from there, what was the next step in these near-death experiences that you had? What was the next one that kind of followed?
Okay, I was in 1965. I had oh my God, Christopher, the most fabulous 65 Corvette. White leather interior, two tops red. And
Really?
so when I was a little girl, I told my mother, now this, your audience, don't get panicked here, but I told my mother, I don't want to get married and I don't want to have any kids.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to do things. I just want
Right.
to. And my mother said, that's ridiculous. So I got talked into getting married. So after a year, so this is the setup for my near death.
Mm-hmm.
So then I called my family and said I was going to get divorced. And oh my God, it was like family hell broke loose. What? You would be the first in the family. Oh my God, Hail Mary, full of grace, or whatever the heck it was.
Right.
And so, but in the back, in the unconscious part of my left computer brain, there was this statement that said, in sickness and in health, till death do you part.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what the heck? Died once already. What the heck? Because you don't really die.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in an accident and smashed up a perfectly beautiful brand new Corvette. I was hit by a 396 Chevy Chevelle. I went over, took down a 40-foot evergreen tree after I was hit twice by them. They came in on the driver's side, spun around, hit my back end. And I actually ended up, went through a cement block wall underneath this person's house. It was an addition. It was all cement up to the windshield. And so I thought, oh my God, I made it.
Right.
I'm out. And so the window was open. It was a beautiful winter day in Michigan, clear skies, snow on the ground, but not on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was. And so I somehow got out of the car and ended up in her house in a little bathroom there with this blood going around in this bowl. And I was attempting to explain to her that I didn't live here on this planet. And the poor lady was deaf. I didn't know that I hit her house.
Oh, really?
She thought her furnace blew up. So then I don't even know how I got out of the window of the car and then ended up, and then I walked down and then I was gone again. I thought, oh my God, what is this? So I call myself the In-N-Out burger. My weird sense of humor. I made that up before that was invented. And so then I felt really free and I thought, oh my God, I really did make it out. And then the next thing I knew, I hear voices telling me, beings telling me, no, you're not out. This is not the way to do it. And I'm going, yes, it is. There's no point in this.
Right.
So the next thing I know, I am laying in the snow and I have a terrible sense of humor. I can't help it. So I felt like somebody cradling me. And I was a mess. I was bleeding internally and externally. Mm-hmm. My head was smashed. I mean, I was a mess. Left computer brain, there's a point to this.
Okay.
And I looked up and there was this woman And I looked, and the sky was beautiful, blue, white cumulus clouds. And I thought, it must be heaven. It's got to be heaven or someplace. I got to be off this earth plane. And I look over and I thought, if that's an angel, that woman is butt ugly. I'm not kidding, because I'm coming. It was a neighbor. I didn't even know the neighbor. A neighbor across the street from this deaf woman's house heard the crash and ran out and saw it. And, that, and then figured out, and then saw me climb out, go in the house, and climb out and fall in the snow. And she came running over to help me. Isn't that funny? And so I couldn't believe it. So then I went to the hospital, and they released me. Here I'm bleeding internally and externally, and they released me. So I work with a lot of doctors, but sometimes I call them. No, I don't. I won't tell you. We whatever, allopathetics. I'm just throwing that out. But I work with a lot of doctors, and I love them. I really do. But they're more open. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Instead of the ones that are really closed up in anything. But duality is very closed up. So that put me on a different path. And I knew that I had to take charge of my life. And so I went into businesses. It gave me opportunities to learn to fly my own airplane. And it took me into all different places. But after being married for so many years, I finally was able to get divorced, and I got sued for alimony, which was really funny now. It wasn't at the time. So that life changed, and I went into the corporate world. I was successful. I got a beautiful new home, because I just walked away, Christopher, with practically nothing. But I thought, you know what? It's called invention. I invented myself at 3. I invented myself at this. I'm going to invent some more.
Right.
And so I created this wonderful life, and I had money and a beautiful home. And I was just, and then 1991 was the setup, Memorial Weekend of 1991. A month prior, and this is what I call the setups.
Okay.
So a month prior, I was in Manhattan at the Javits Center at a trade show that I was doing for the company that I worked for. And this gal came up to me, and I had gone to high school with her. And she told me, when will you be back? And I said, next month, I'll be back in Boston. So was she. She said, why don't you meet us, and we'll drive you back to Connecticut. To make a long story short, we went to Old Saybrook, Connecticut. There's a wonderful restaurant called the Dock and Dine, and I turned it into the Dock and Die. And so we went to eat, and then she said, I'm going to take you to this wonderful restaurant on the Connecticut River. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and I'd been up since 5 a.m. in Boston at a conference, and we drove to Connecticut, not that far. And so I was walking through the parking lot with her, and someone called her, and she said, do you mind if I go talk to these people? I said, not at all. This is so beautiful. And a woman backed her car out in front of me and hit the car behind her. She rolls out of her car, drunker than drunk, and says, can you help me? I was way overtired, and I made a decision instead of a choice. I said, sure. So I got in her car, and I moved it. And the next thing I knew, the car was taking off. I saw a barrier in front, because this is a beautiful restaurant, and they're all yachts parked, Christopher. Yachts. And we're not talking rowboats. We're talking yachts, a very wealthy area. And I saw this pole barrier, and I thought, oh my God, now her car smashed in the back, and I'm going to smash her front. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be in trouble. And all these thoughts were going through momentarily.
Right.
It hit the barrier, it bent, and I launched about 40 feet in the air. And it flipped over and went down 15 feet underwater in the Connecticut River. These are the setups. The people who had a yacht in this slip never, I was told, took their yacht out. That night, they took it out for a spin. And they just bought it to party on. And so I was 15 feet underwater. I had a broken neck, broken back, smashed head, brain out of place. We didn't know my brain was out of place. It was a mess. And I got out, and I'm going, oh my God, how fortuitous. At last, I made it. There is no going back this time. No way. There is nobody going to talk me into going back, because I could see that this car was upside down, but I was on a ship. I was on a ship, and I'm looking out the window like it was the Starship, the Enterprise, and I'm going, wait a minute, this is really weird. What am I doing up here? And I'm looking at that, and I'm in this room, and this is hilarious. I had this outfit on, and it was sort of nautical because we were going to this nautical place, and it had an anchor on it. I'm not kidding you. It was black and white with a red anchor on it. I'm going, oh my God. And I
Really?
met these 12 beings that I called the 12 wise guys because it was Connecticut and the mafia and all that. So that's why I called them the 12 wise guys. And they said, Sherry, it's so nice to meet you. And they started talking to me, and they said, did you know that you have a contract to go back, which I later called the con of the tracks?
Hmm.
And I said, what? And I said, do you see the mess my body's in? And you're expecting, they said, oh no, we're not expecting you to do anything, but you made a contract to go back, that this is a big one. Like this is a big one to wake you up. I
Hmm.
said, I am awake. I'm not going back. And I was a little rude and,
Hmm.
dropped a few little F bombs because I had moved to the East Coast, and that's where I
Right.
learned the F word because I was from Michigan and we would never say that there. So, and I'm not going back. And they were very polite and very wonderful. And then they laughed. And that really aggravated me. Actually, it pissed me off. They were laughing, not at me, but they were laughing at how I was. Listen, I'm not going back. I don't care what
Right.
you say.
Right.
I don't care about a contract. I don't care. Like, you people are nuts. I'm not going back. And so after we had this wonderful chat, and they said, this is some of the things you're going to be doing. And I go, oh, what? And so the next thing you know, and the window of this car was open, just like the Corvette. The window was open. I came out and just slid up, and I cannot swim. I cannot swim. Even though I've had homes with pools, I cannot swim, nor am I interested in learning. I just like to float around in the water.
Right.
So I came up, and I'm screaming. Now this is like 11:30 at night,
Hmm.
and I'm screaming on Memorial Weekend, I can't swim. And all of a sudden I felt these arms lifting me up onto the dock. Now these are docks for yachts. This is
Right.
not like a little rowboat,
Right.
And so this man pulled me up, and he laid me on the dock, and I put my hand up. I remember this finger going into my head and this bloody water running down my arm. And I said, I have to get up and go home. And he said, where do you live? And I said, Michigan. He goes, we're in Connecticut. I, and so the next thing you know, I did find out subsequently, months later, that the person that they said pulled me out of the car, there was no, pulled me out of the water, there was no such person. So whoever that was, there was no such person.
That's interesting.
Isn't
Okay.
that interesting?
Yeah.
So then I went to the hospital, and they took me into the emergency room, and there was this wonderful old doctor, and my head is split wide open. And so he said, we're going to have to stitch you up. And I said, you know what? I've heard, because of some of the work that I've done, I said, you know what? I am not having an emergency doctor sew me up. Where's a plastic surgeon? I swear to you, Christopher. And an hour later, this fabulous Dr. Cherry showed up, sewed me up. And look, you would never know that.
Yeah.
But the only thing I said after that, when I came to a couple days later, really came to, I said, I really screwed up. It was my chance of getting a facelift, and I did, and it would have been paid for.
Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So 3 days later, when he came to take out the stitches, it was almost healed. But while I was in this hospital, I told them to only bring me raw food. I said, if you have to give me something, cook me oatmeal. But otherwise, I only would like raw food. I don't want any meat. I don't need it anyway. There's nothing to do with it. But I was always like this as a kid. Give me raw food. Give me vegetables. And so I kind of floated around that hospital for a week. And there was a little girl in there who was visiting her mother. And she walked in, and she kept saying, the lady. And she crawled up into my bed and wouldn't let me go, and hugged me, and just hugged me. And of course, her mother was my roommate in the hospital, didn't know what to do. Neither did the nurses. So I was just like floating around. My face was all swollen, in a mess. I
Hmm.
kid you not, a
Hmm.
mess. But in 3 days later, when it came to take out the stitches, it was almost completely healed. And so it was a teaching hospital. And so I had to talk to a psychiatrist and a psychologist. And so they asked me what happened.
Hmm.
just like the police
Mm-hmm.
eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can tell you what happened, what you think happened, or I can tell you what really happened. And they just said, tell us what we think happened. I said, okay. So then I made up a story for
Mm-hmm.
they'd be comfortable. Because I didn't tell them about the people that I met and
Right.
that I was on a ship, or otherwise I'd ended up in a psychiatric ward. And I
Sure.
thought
Sure.
there's
No,
no way
absolutely.
that they're gonna, I already knew that. It was that clear.
But
So I was in there in the hospital for a week,
mhm.
and they told me all of these things, dire predictions, and I thought, bullshit. And so I asked my body, there has to be something smarter in this body than this brain, because this brain is not too smart, and I smashed it twice already.
Mhm.
So two words came to me, Christopher, called cellular memory.
Hmm.
So I am the first layperson that wrote about cellular memory starting in 1991, started
Really?
teaching about it, that the cellular memory is our continuum. It's everything it's all our knowledge.
Hmm.
But it's like the teacher said, memorize it and pass the test.
Right.
And that's when I discovered about duality, good and bad, high and low. My God's better than your God.
Mm-hmm.
It was like absurd to me. And I remember then at 3 why I was aggravated to be here. And then I was really aggravated that I smashed up a Corvette when I didn't have to. But I had to do something to take charge of my life, because duality takes control, the con of the troll.
So,
And so from that point on, my life changed. I lost everything. I lost everything and came to Arizona in 97
mhm.
with $50 and started all over. But the interesting part about it, I started talking to all these different people. We can call them beings, we can call them whatever you want to call them,
Mhm.
but they were beings to me from all different dimensions. And it was like all the worlds opened up to me. Even though in the physical world I was losing everything, it stressed my family out to know, and they absolutely completely said, we can't deal with you. Just, you don't exist anymore. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And so people started coming to me, and I'd say, are you crazy? And they'd say, can you fix us? And I go, do I look like a tube of crazy glue? No, I can't fix you. But they said, there's something about you. So then people started coming to me, and I started assisting them. And that's how it began. And they said, you're a healer. I said, no, I'm not a healer. There are no healers. You have to heal yourself.
Mhm.
But what I did was create a methodology to teach people to get to the cellular memory. So
Mhm.
they've gotten rid of stage 4 cancer, they've gotten off of alcohol or drugs, because those are all duality based programs. So the biggest addiction on this planet is duality. We are addicted. People would rather be right and die than be
Mhm.
correct and live.
I want to thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. We talk about a lot of crazy stuff here, so if you want to hear more, just like and subscribe to the channel. It would really help us out a lot. And plus, if you have a crazy story, whether it be an alien abduction, near-death experience, or something of the paranormal, or a glitch in the matrix, please let us know. Share it in the comments. We'd love to have you on the show.